So without further ado, the floor is yours, Põhjala people.
Can you put on the presentation?
Yes,
Good.
we are working on it. Kas sa saad panna siin desktop?
Okei, selle siis või?
Jah.
Nii. Kas ma panen selle?
Nüüd.
Okay, so as you heard, hello everybody. We are Sten, Liis and Ruts. You can see in a few seconds our formal titles on the presentation. Today, Liis and Ruts are going to talk about Põhjala Factory. It's a former factory which now is an upcoming community center. And in the end of the presentation, I'm going to talk about a community festival called KopliFest. So fasten your seatbelts and let's go, Liis.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, we can.
Hello from my side as well. And my name is Liis, as Sten told. And I will briefly tell you about Põhjala. I think you already maybe have a bit of knowledge about this place. Maybe somebody already even has like visited it. But I've been connected to Põhjala for 3 years now, since its new beginning. And just to give you a bit of context, well, I'm sure you all know Tallinn and you all know Põhja-Tallinn, North Tallinn very well. But we are situated in Kopli, which is a fast developing neighborhood in Tallinn. You could say that there is a bit of gentrification happening, which has brought in many new, mostly Estonian-speaking young people. Often the code name may be used or stereotype to describe them as hipsters. But you also find these so-called old audiences here as well, mostly Russian-speaking, different people. And our factory is you can call it a creative city or a cultural factory, has also an ambition to be a community center. So as we have this ambition, we really need to take into consideration both the new and the old audiences and find ways and means how to connect and invite various target groups to our factory. The factory itself is huge. It's located on 15 hectares and it has 4 like very big houses which all serve a different purpose. And how we manage this factory is basically like this, that there are 4 owners who renovate the buildings and find studios and people who rent the rooms. Then there's NGO, who is somehow like the mediator of residents, owners, and communities and events. And then there are over 60 creative residents, which will be soon, in a few months, over 100, because we have a new building restored, and they will move in, making us, according to Estonian standards, quite a big organization. I think because since our presentation was supposed to be a bit also, or we wanted it to be also a bit practical, I thought of the lessons I've learned here in Põhjala and some things that I think that are important. But in any case, I think these 3 questions in Põhjala and in every sort of undertaking, I think you should ask these questions from yourself. First one, and the most important one, is why do I do it? Why do I do Põhjala, for example? Then the second question is, with whom do you do it? What I have learned in my life is that the things that attract you the most about your colleagues, about the mission ahead, about the opportunities, are the things which become probably the biggest source of conflict at some point. And if you acknowledge this since the beginning, I think there is a greater possibility for succeeding. And then you should ask, to whom do you do it? And I think these 3 questions, at least for me, precede even the questions of vision or mission or how or where are we going with Põhjala. As long as I can answer these three questions, I think I'm in the right place. So why I do Põhjala is I'm an anthropologist. I heard you had a meeting with an anthropologist yesterday. So I am an anthropologist as well, and I love creating communities. And I've lived in Kopli for years before it became even popular. So my mission somehow is to keep balance in Põhjala, so that I take into consideration the business, but I also take into consideration the minorities or the poorer people or the Russian-speaking people. So my role here, what I see, is to keep a balance in this small microverse or micro-universum. Then with whom I do it, I really like to work with the developers. When I studied anthropology, the developers were often seen, in urban studies at least, as the enemies of or the causes of gentrification. It's a privilege and honor to work with owners who I think have actually like, of course, their aim is also to earn profit, but I think they are very intelligent and balanced developers as well. So I think there's a lot to learn also from their perspective of how they change the cities around us. And to whom I do it, as I mentioned before, I personally do it for the people of Kopli. The recipe, I think it's quite a recipe for anything. Like you need a place and you need an idea. Often ideas come before places. And then you need network, and then you start to organize events which bring people in and enlarge your network even more. So I don't know if there is a lot to expand on this. I think this recipe basically is the source of or is the secret of how to bring life into previously abandoned places, internationally. If I think about do's and don'ts, then this is very, actually, I think there are no do's and don'ts in creating communities or spaces like Põhjala. It's every project needs a new approach, but I wrote down some of the main rules which I think are important or have been important for me. First is don't lose your head. If you are with your undertaking in a very popular place like we are with Põhjala, and if you do events that matter to people, and if you somehow can become a bit famous, and then people get inspired and they come to you with all sorts of ideas. And now I reach point 3, which is learn to say no. Learn to say no to sometimes very good ideas if they don't support your vision, or if they don't answer to these 3 questions that I asked in the beginning, like if you can't find answers, then say no to even very good proposals. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned here in Põhjala. Then of course plan, but not too much. You need to plan. The foundation always needs to be set, but if you plan too much, I think the flow or the energy somehow starts to suffer. So here we plan minimum. Sometimes we suffer from this, but I think in general that's another very good lesson. Then number 4, clear agreements with the landlords. I think in Põhjala we have mistaken against all of these do's and don'ts, actually, at least we don't have clear agreements with the landlords, but as long as our visions and ideas match, we've had no problem. But I think in general, it's extremely important to have very clear agreements, especially when money is involved and certain tasks or certain responsibilities like safety. And number 5, ask and receive help. This was quite difficult for me in the beginning, to ask for sponsorship or to ask people to work for your undertaking as volunteers. But I've found out that this is very helpful, and this is something you need to do and get used to, and find means to somehow give back to these people with your means. But what I've understood in Põhjala is that there are no do's and don'ts, actually, but there is only one rule. If you want to create an active community, let's use this word like community, then create places and opportunities of engagement. And this is very important, because usually what people do is they create places where people can consume I don't know, bars or what have you. But I think when you create places where people don't have to consume, but they can create, you are after something very special. And I have some examples from Põhjala, which I think have worked very well. For example, our street markets, we started with them last year. It's nothing new to organize street markets, but I think they have been very popular, and we've done different markets, like farmers markets. A few weeks ago, we had art and vintage street market. But I like that this is an event which sort of curates itself. There are always new people coming to sell their new things, new old things. And I think this creates always this sort of a feeling in people, like this engaged feeling. And also, like, market is something that I've seen connects both Estonian or Russian speakers, both wealthy, both less wealthy people. It's somehow like a very nice event with what to start with. Why I can't go? Okay. Then when we talk about community, we all usually refer to the community like around us, like local people of Kopli, but actually very important is the community you build inside an organization that you have. So the community that we build with our creative residents. And here is one example. We have a bar here called Potik, and it was their idea in the beginning actually to create a rooftop garden, which on a sunny weather would function as a bar, but it would be open for everybody. It would be educational permaculture garden. It's a project that supports Põhjala tehas vision. We want to make green roofs on every flat roof. And also it offers so many opportunities again for engagement. Are these children camps? Are these yoga lessons? Are these parties? Are these just picnics that people can have there for free just to enjoy or take sun? So, I mean, it's very important to also, I think this project showed me how important it is to collaborate with the community that you already have among your colleagues. Then this is an example how we did children's junk playground. It's a playground that children themselves built. We just gave them old junk from our factory, sort of created an event where they were a bit like competing with each other. And it's a project that we just keep on developing. We're going to have a children's summer camp when they're going to build this further. But it's again a nice example of how, like, if you think out of the box, you can achieve very nice results. But what we did is that we gave the authority and power to children. We just made sure that the attractions are more or less safe, and we gave them the tools. When for parents, this playground looks like a pile of trash, then children's eyes go like wide when they see it. It matches their aesthetic. They are super into it. Again, a great example of how to engage with very different audiences. Then we are also a bit known for our community garden. We have over 70 boxes that belong to people around us. They are mostly Kopli people who live in apartments. They don't have maybe summer houses or gardens, so they gladly come here to maintain their box, but also they water the rooftop garden. We organize events. The greenhouse you see on the photo, we built it with the gardeners. Yeah, I don't know what else to tell about this. This is a example. Like this year, we started with the galleries project, and it's also to engage a different target group, young emerging artists who can use our rooms in the factory, bring life to there through their artworks, exhibit. And it's so difficult for people usually to have their first exhibition. Nobody yet knows them. So we wanted to have or offer this opportunity and our empty rooms for the artists. And also it helps again with our vision of being a creative or cultural factory and creating a small community among the artists in our building, like the residents. So I think if you follow certain, like if you do such things, then you, at some point, you might become the story you tell, because in the beginning, you just, what you do is you tell the story. We are this, we are that, these are our values, those are our values. And sometimes you start to hesitate, like, are we on the right path? So on and so forth. But I think if you do it long enough, if you learn to say no, if you support undertakings which need support, then yes, maybe one day you become the story you tell. Thanks. I give now the computer to Ruts.
Yes. Hello. So I'm Ruts. I'm managing and coordinating bookings in Põhjala Factory event spaces. So okay, something happened. Show anyway.
Mine välja sellest esitlusest äkki. Pane siit lihtsalt.
Kas teil on? Siin oli see insert või?
Ei ju.
Okay, there's something wrong with my part of the presentation. So
maybe if you press reload.
I don't know, it just won't work. The picture won't work.
No.
We can see it this way also if it's.
Put present again and now put reload or show anyway.
Try the show anyway.
Yeah, it's just the text. There's no picture. I don't know why.
Well, show it like that then.
Yeah,
you know,
yes,
it wouldn't be a Zoom meeting unless we had some technical problems.
Of course.
Indeed.
So, and you know, me and Zoom, we don't get along that good. So, of course, it's me. So basically, I'm kind of the funding side from NGO for Põhjala Factory. And we have a number of different spacious hangars that can be used as event spaces or filming and photo shoot locations. And luckily, in my point of view, these hangars do attract a lot of potential clients. So we can actually benefit financially from these spaces. So in a way, it works as a indirect marketing for Põhjala Factory. Also, our hangars are like a backdrop for different Estonian commercials and music videos, so people are aware a little bit of how our space looks like. And different public events bring here people who haven't heard of us before, so that's like a potential new audience, like different audiences, not like one kind of way. Like Liis before said, we can't just have only hipsters here, you know. So yeah, and these spaces and the indirect marketing creates new potential financial opportunities. Considering that these hangars are a source of temporary and waiting to be under development, there are some challenges, but then again, their aesthetic attracts loads of creative people from different fields, basically. So here are some examples and a list of different events that can be held in these spaces. We've had some public events and private events. We've had some lovely weddings held here, birthday parties, some corporate events and seminars, and our own events that Liis briefly talked about, which are like more community-based and the area kind of based projects. And of course, students are quite interested in this area to do their own visual arts projects and exhibitions. We've had some lovely exhibitions from Estonian Academy of Arts and from our film academy also. Baltic Film Media School. I think that's how it's called. So they do enjoy our spaces a lot too. So here's a little example of the big or like the spaces we have basically. And a very important part to actually gain some fundings from my work is to create a very functioning price list. And this can only kind of happen in the space of like a year or so, when you understand how much is too much. And it's very like case by case for a while, and then you understand what you can ask and what is too much for these kind of spaces. And of course, my job has quite a few challenges, especially during the COVID area we have right now. We had to postpone or cancel some local and international events. But at the same time, a technical production company built a hybrid studio in one of our hangars, which allowed them to broadcast some events and kind of gain some money through that kind of way. Another big kind of a challenge that we face is that these hangars at the moment are quite, considering Estonian weather, they are quite seasonal, meaning that from kind of November until April, it's quite difficult to hold like a reasonable event there without, people having jackets on, basically. So yeah, the cold and the winter time is rough in a way, because we don't have like a heating system installed in these spaces. Again, I'm talking a lot of practical stuff here, like just what I do day to day.
We love the practical stuff. Keep it coming.
Okay. So where was I? So basically we can sell the space as an outside area during the winter period. And well, although we've had some private events that had a good budget, so they can actually invest in the heat. But it's like, talking money-wise, the large hangar, you would need to pay at least 2,000 euros to actually heat the space during, let's say, Christmas period. So it is like a good chunk of your budget if you want to have an event there. But we do have some clients for that. And to tie the winter and the seasonal parts into the last point, the administration part kind of, it's also like a slight challenge in a way that there are like problems with the seasonality, and especially like with different types of events. Let's say like for seminars, we don't really have much, let's say, like technical stuff to rent out. So usually it's a bit more tricky for seminar holders to have something here. So it's a hard selling point for that kind of an event. But and the heating problem comes into the game again. But we do have some like spot heating. So for example, during the winter time, all kinds of like film crews and commercial shoots and that kind of creativity, or that kind of rent. All my clients, they were happy to use that space because they did have some sort of a heat solution.
Can I add something?
Yes, of course.
I think one of the biggest challenges that Ruts hasn't mentioned yet is our creative board. So yeah, the landlords have given the hangars and the entire factory public spaces for the NGO to rent out. But they're almost every maybe 10th event that comes in, We often have to sit down together with the owners and with the members of NGO, and sometimes we also call to certain specialists, and we make a decision based on a consensus. If somebody is against that particular event, we don't allow it to happen. And that has always created a lot of heat inside our own well, the management board, because there is always somebody who is against something. But I think also this creative board functions as a very good and efficient tool for not losing sight or allowing us for maybe going into the wrong direction or just like temptations. Because one thing about Põhjala is that there's going to be apartment building in one of the buildings that we have, and due to that we've always avoided the night scene and having like techno parties or raves, and we have always been family centered. And even though the apartment building just will be ready in 2 years, let's say, we already have like chosen this path, and we don't allow this reputation of night party place to happen. Also not to annoy our neighbors, because there are many apartment buildings close to us and around us. So this mechanism, this creative board, it's also very important in Põhjala, and I think in many ways maybe unique.
I mean, the visionary curation about the public events that we hold here, it's definitely more like a visionary challenge. But in the end of the day, yeah, it's like a day-to-day kind of a extra something to consider when I get, different, when people ask me if they can hold their event here, so I can actually I do know what I can take and what I can't take pretty much. Well, that's what's been kind of put into work in that sense, that we do have a filter. In that sense, yeah, my do's and don'ts are that you do need to have some sort of filter if you want to have a clear vision going ahead for like 5-year plan, 10-year plan. What do you want to see in 10 years in that space if you are like a developer and so. But yeah, to touch on the last administration issue, I would say like my practical advice would be, again, that everyone's the basics, which are toilets, water, electricity, and adjustable temperature. So that's basically my everyday challenge, to find ways to and the floors, yeah, that's another story. And the floors, but yeah, these are the basics that my client really wants, and I do try to find some solutions for these occasions. So yes, that would be it.
Yeah, edasi ikkagi.
And now I would give the word to Sten to talk about KopliFest.
Maybe you can put it on full screen.
Yeah, I'll try to do that. Okay. Do you know what was wrong with my picture?
It's working. So thanks, Ruts and Liis, for introducing Põhjala Factory. Like Liis said at the beginning of the presentation, that Kopli wasn't a very popular neighborhood like 5 years ago. When I moved in Tallinn about 20 years ago, it had a quite bad reputation. So the things you are listening now, and the beautiful buildings and things you are hearing is happened only a few years. About 20 years ago, the reputation was that you get robbed or stabbed in that place. So we have done a lot of good jobs there. So I'm talking about an local event which I created for working for a local town government in Tallinn. It's called KopliFest, and for me, the idea of the festival was to empower the local community, but the main question was how to do it, how to get in touch with the local people and their needs, and how do I know what they want. So since I was working for the local government, I dig up some information and read all the complaints about that area, Kopli area, that the town government received in the last few years. So I did, I acquired some information, what they want to change there and what the problems are. And also it's the internet, internet possibilities are endless. So I became a member of all the Facebook groups regarding Kopli and that region. So I will see what people are writing about and what the problems are before going to start this organizing the event. My work paid off, and I mapped out 3 biggest issues, and they were lack of culture. People were disappointed that there weren't any public events in that area. All the events were taking place in the Stormy Beach area, and like this big festivals, about 5 or 4 years ago, there weren't any there. Thanks to Põhjala Factory, now there's plenty of them. There was in that area, there was a lot of noise problems. The local harbor was making a lot of noise, and the locals was frustrated. And also the third problem was youngsters who didn't have anything to do there in that region. So I set my 3 goals, and I had to recruit my team. I wanted to recruit a wide network of local planners, someone who has something to gain, like the local businesses, the local artists, the schools, the youth center that was there. And I wanted to make as wide network as possible. Also, I forgot, I had a hidden agenda for the event that I wanted to organize the event only for 3 years, and in the 4th year, the locals should themselves organize this event, not me anymore as a head organizer. But that good team. I wanted to recruit a wide network of planners, so I sent about 100 emails, and I made a lot of phone calls to local businesses, event places, and so on. I also advertised in the local newspaper, and my selling point was that it would be good for their business and for their reputation for being part of my team and being part of KopliFest. It was my main sentence in the emails was like something like this: let's make Kopli great again, and let's make it together. For me, in the 1st year, I wasn't sure about what kind of people would participate in the event. So my plan was to offer something to every age group, but especially for the youngsters, because of my main 3 goals. The youngsters didn't have anything to do there. So youngsters had their private part of the festival and activities. It worked out great for the 1st year, and so I resumed offering some kind of activities, all the age group, to the next 2 years also. My final due for organizing an event for community would be that you have to find a viable source of funding. There was a lot of questions in the chat for Põhjala Factory funding also. And when you are like organizing the community festival, it has to go long many years because people have to get used to it, and so the viable source of funding is a very important thing. So you have to get a lot of sponsors, and also when you get the interest of the town government, for me it was easy because I was working for them. It is also a great thing. There are, like Liis also said, there aren't many don'ts for like festival planning or community planning. For me, the biggest don't is that do not assume that you know everything. Because when you are planning for the locals and with the local community, you have to acknowledge that they know the best what they want. You can be a great event planner, but when planning a great community festival, you have to work with the locals and hear them out. And yes, so community knows best. In the first year when I was planning the festival, I made one huge mistake, and as you can see on the slide, one thing you mustn't do is to agitate the locals. Like I said, in the first year, I made the festival program, and it took place to midnight, and it wasn't a really good idea because, like I said, there weren't many cultural activities taking place there at that time. And I got a lot of pen pals who wrote to me that I was insane for organizing that event in the nighttime. But the positive point of view, I made a lot of pen pals, and some of them were part of my team for the next years. So I recruited them and talked about the timing of the event and so on, and we managed all work together. So it's all about KopliFest, and I think our presentation is also over. So thank you for listening.
Thank you both to Põhjala, tehas, Liis and Ruts, and to Sten. We have a lot of questions, a lot. I'm trying to manage with keeping an eye on all of them, but to start with, Liis and Ruts, some are for you. Yes, Tallinn is very lucky to have this kind of building still available there. And Liis, you mentioned the 3 key points on where Põhjala is today.
I would say that I actually joined Põhjala Factory in like a second stage of that factory, where some of it was kind of developed already, so I could start to build up that position we have today for like booking, coordinating for the event space, basically. So I wasn't here.
I came here 3 years ago. I was invited here, and there was a pile of trash and abandoned buildings, and there were 2 developers with a crazy light in their eyes telling me what's going to be here.
Yeah, Liis has a very different experience than I do.
3 years of constant excitement and frustration, but I still think we are in the beginning. I think in 5 years we will look a lot different. Will we be different? This I don't know.
I thought you were already almost there. But how to...
Looks like it.
But how do you keep the balance, meaning the gentrification sense? How do you offer something for everybody?
You will never please everybody. Always somebody will be left behind or occasionally preferred. There is always imbalance in keeping the balance. But I think for me, it's very intuitive, and I cannot say how you technically do it. I mean, you can create a calendar and put down community event every month, business event every month, but then you have Corona, then you have all sorts of obstacles. For me, it's intuitive. If I have a feeling that we are going too much into some direction, you sit down, you ask yourself, you ask the owners, you ask the community members, like, why are we doing this? Where are we going with it? And often a very good sign is a bit of like rebellion or criticism that also comes from our creative residents. And I felt very hurt about these comments, but also I've understood that this is a sign of healthy community if you get feedback, even if it's negative. It means that it's a source or it's a way how community becomes active, manages themselves. It's so important. But I think when we are talking about building communities, we leave the negative aspects. Often we don't talk about them. So it's intuitive. What can I say?
I mean, we do kind of take day by day sometimes, especially with the COVID. Like my work structurally should work like 3 months ahead. But then, you know, next day it's like, oh, the whole country is locked down. And then you need to create a new plan for the whole 3 months. So it's just, it is day by day. It's been, you know, just don't take anything seriously, basically. At least for 2020.
Another thing which really like actually curates our job with Ruts here is that if you are building a cultural factory, usually they are abandoned places in a bad condition. And then you have two strategies. You either fix everything and find people to run it. And that's how Grenholm wants to operate. And the option two that we are having is that you bring this place into life while developing it. And also this development process sort of leads our job, because if one building is under construction, we cannot do anything there. But if something gets ready, we immediately get opportunities to rent it out or find something to do there. And I think when we also talk about finding the balance, you have to take into consideration the creative board, which means that even if I'm going maybe into some direction, then one of the owners pulls me aside and says, but what about the cultural vision? And then I have to sit down and think about the cultural vision. And that's okay, because nobody can handle all of the aspects of such a big undertaking on their own. So we have a very supporting team, I think, actually, who sees the large picture. And the owners are people who have like years of experience. So they have done such things before. They created Telliskivi, they created Aparaaditehas, they have made mistakes. So that's why it's a privilege to work with them. I think we have avoided many dead ends because of that.
You mentioned very many points on what we have also questions. So I'm just going to go. How do you find the financing?
So the financing works like this. Basically, as I told, the owners are fixing the buildings and finding the creative residents. NGO rents out the public spaces, and that's how the NGO earns money. But here in Põhjala, we have something called concept fee. That's what every creative residence has to pay. It's like with the big malls. You pay a certain small amount of fee, which is basically the marketing cost of the entire factory. So this is how my salary is being paid. So creative residents actually pay for my salary, and the NGO gets its money from the different programs, or then from renting out the rooms. NGO has never been like a very profitable undertaking, because we do earn like quite a lot, but we also spend quite a lot, because all of these community projects, they also require quite a lot of funding. And the rooftop garden itself was like thousands of euros.
Another question on the rooftops, and another question. I have so many questions. How do you keep the community involved? You mentioned active communities, like the basis to everything. How do you keep them involved and informed, and how do you build the bridges between the community and the Põhjala factory? Like the rooftop gardens and the gardening lots, and what else do you do?
When I started with Põhjala, the first project I created was community garden. And since gardening is the thing that interests all of community gardeners, it seemed to me that to create a community, it's so easy. Like you just create something like that people have common values about, and then you have supporting group. Then when I started to build this Põhjala factory and creative residence, it became so much more complicated, because our creative residents are people they are family businesses, they are solo artists, they are brand makers, influencers. They live from what they make here. So they have quite big hopes, quite big dreams, quite big, what's the word, expectations about what we can offer, or how Põhjala can boost their business. So my job is here to keep this balance between business and NGO, between business and greenness, between families and large scale money events. So I think it's another course on how to do that. Like, I think the key word is communication. We organize events with creative residents. We held meetings where they can always participate and come in with their concerns. Of course, sometimes it doesn't happen. Then we try to learn from our mistakes. But the key thing is just it is the communication. You have to listen to people. And then you have to connect the people between themselves so that there would be synergies. And all what you can do sometimes is create technical means for that, even creating email list, create a Facebook group, create a regularity that you meet every month. Like just encourage the synergy between them, because I cannot solve all of their problems. A bit sometimes I feel like I have this mother stereotype that I try to help with every concern. I feel that it's not healthy for me, but I don't know. Again, I don't know if I can give a good answer to that.
But what are some of the mistakes that you've learned from?
I what Sten told, one of the biggest mistakes I've done here is that sometimes I think I know the best. I have this feeling because I've been here for 3 years and I've done this already or tried that already. And then when somebody has an idea, I might say automatically no, because it doesn't immediately resonate within me. And but there is this thing that somehow if the owners have trusted this vision and the progress or the development also on my shoulders, sometimes I have a feeling that certain things I know the best, but how to then still keep the community interested or still active, or how to say no so that nobody would be offended and they would understand me. Yeah, so this is one of the lessons, that sometimes still the community knows the best and you need to let go from your initial idea, from your initial reaction, and sometimes you have to let also people do their own mistakes. If they are small mistakes, you can let them happen. And sometimes they don't turn at all out as mistakes, but as beautiful new beginnings. Yeah.
What a lovely choice of words. Beautiful new beginnings. Rebecca, I see you here. Are you here to help me out?
I am always here for you, Karen. And like everyone, I have so many questions. And we've talked quite a lot about money and stakeholders. Can we just come back to the practicalities a little? We were all very excited about how you've got away with doing some of the things that you do, given licensing laws and so on. Have you had any problems with people being concerned about your use of the space, about health and safety, with the festival, with the cultural space? Have you had any issues? Because in a lot of ways, you must be groundbreaking.
Yes, we've had. And in the first year, for example, I didn't at all allow certain events to happen in these buildings, which were like, I was not sure about the construction. And but we work here with technical engineers. And even before any undertaking, like the rooftop garden, we do consult with specialists, and the landlords help to do like the security. They secure that the place is safe for people. So that's the main thing. But we do go, I think, many times against the law. I'm not going to hide this. Yeah.
Why should we?
But I want to say that, for example, there are like nonsense cases as well. We have a shed in the community garden, and I want to be a good citizen. So I wanted to get like a promise from the city for this shed. And since we have a pollution under the it's old factory territory, so there is pollution here. And I was not granted the permission to put the community shed here because of this underground pollution. And it was ridiculous because we have already the community garden and people are here anyway, and the boxes are not, the plants and their roots are not going to the ground, they're lifted boxes. So the shed seemed to me the most like stupid thing. It took me 1,500 euros and 2 years to get permission on this shed, but I wanted this small victory.
You were very consistent.
I just called the city people almost every day saying that this is nonsense. Like, just give me the allowance. We take this risk, and the owners take this risk.
And about the event spaces now, during my period of like working here, like developers, experts have like evaluated the spaces, and I have kind of information that I communicate to my clients, so that they are aware that you can't, drill holes in the, walls, or you can't hang certain amounts over the, how do you call these pillars and stuff in the hangers, and they're old and kind of like, it's like a cultural monumental building also. So all my clients do need to understand that, and they need to kind of prove everything with me before hanging anything. So that's how I try to, go about that.
The security also, like when there are big events, we require security and the fire plan from like the public events. Mm-hmm. So we make what is possible.
Well, the licensing part, we are private, like the buildings are private owned, so you don't need to get the public event license for the spaces. I know London has a different story, the Hackney Council, I'm aware, but yeah, Estonia doesn't have that strict rules in that sense.
And the playground, everyone was very excited about the playground. How you managed to do that?
The playground, so the children were building it in teams with grown-ups, and then later we have like gone through all the construction and seen, but of course it is a place where you can get hurt. So we removed some of the most dangerous attractions, And we are also covering the surface with a soft material so that even if you fell, you don't get hurt so much. So at this point, the playground is relatively safe. But I've seen children coming home from even public playgrounds with broken hands. So this is what just happens often when you are a child. But we have put up signs also that playing only the under supervision of a grown-up, but of course signs, I mean, basically they are nothing.
I mean, there are so many reports saying that lack of opportunity to take risks is damaging our children. I think we would probably all agree with you with going forward, but it's nonetheless interesting about that tension between creative cultural activity and licensing. Leonard, do you have any comment on this before we pick up on a different question?
No, I think, yes, junk playground is I didn't know before, but it's again a topic in itself, controversial topic, and something very exciting and interesting that we are now just like looking further into ourselves as well.
And I'm suddenly aware that we are actually running out of time, sadly. A question to all three of you who have presented for us, and we've had it in a number of different ways. You as individuals are clearly leaders here and have to do a lot personally with your personalities, with the way that you work with other people. How have you come to be in this position, and what support do you have and what support do you need? So I'd like to hear from all three of you. I don't know who wants to go first.
I actually have a very kind of practical support, because we do have an events agency here, which gives me a lot of support in the sense of like from the viewpoints of event organizers, basically. So I do get a lot of like input from that side of managing my spaces, basically. I would say that.
I think Sten has been very silent.
Yeah.
Come on, Sten. Tell us how you manage. What support do you get? What support do you not get and do you need?
I was silent because I was writing all the time. There was so good things to write about.
So we're interested in your role as a leader, and it's clearly very diverse, and it clearly requires a lot of you as a person to be managing community relationships, staff, contractors, money, but to be able to hold space for all of this within you. What support do you get and what support do you need to enable you to do what you're doing?
Yeah, like I said, my main goal for the festival, and I think also the main goal for me, is to empower the people. So, and I think when I empower the people and the community empowers me. When I see that old lady, 60 years old, has a dream or a vision, and he wants, I don't know, something, and I can give it to him or her, it empowers me. So this is the most important thing for me.
So keeping the passion.
Keeping the passion, and also because I have worked in the town government so many years. It's like, this isn't the work for me. It's my hobby. It's my goal, what to do. And yes, sometimes the hours are long, but it keeps me going. I don't know. It's my life.
I think so much of what we all do is driven by individual people's passion and commitment. It's amazing. Did anyone want to ask a question directly, or feel that Karen and I haven't picked something up in the chat that was important? Have we covered everybody's points about board?
Can I just go back? I mean, and it may be that actually it's pre your time, and that the initial conversations to get developers to see this large space as being far more economically viable as a cultural space than, I mean, the conversations in Dublin would be to knock it all to the ground and build thousands of apartments for rent at large extortionate, you know, rental income. Who was involved in that conversation? How long did it take, and how did it happen? Because I think this is always the really interesting thing for all of us. We know that there are spaces like this in all of our cities, but that disconnect between, we know cultural spaces are really useful for urban planning and for cities and their sustainability, but developers not so much.
I mean, we're very lucky with our developers, actually. They do have the same kind of values as we do. That's what they wanted to get out of the space, actually.
I mean, why I maybe started, yeah, with why it's important with whom you do it is that there are developers and then there are developers.
Yes.
When we have 4 developers, then it's they all have their own take on the things here, and they as persons have a common vision, but also always a bit different vision. But I think in the end, what I have a feeling is that they've done also these projects which bring in you a lot of money, easy money, let's say. And I think as a person, if I think about it just like from the point of humanity, I think in certain point, if you've done already these things, then at a certain point of your life, you sort of see the wider perspective, or you see other things behind it. And of course, the activities we do here, the community garden, the children's playground, the rooftop gardens, the markets, they promote their apartment building and as well. I mean, it's part of their business model to have these things here, also the surrounding cultural factory. But as Ruts said, I think we are lucky and we are working with people who want to do this project right.
I think most of the developers in Põhjala, I have met most of them, and they are like visionaries. So they aren't out only for the money. The money is a side effect for them. They want to be part of the community and contribute to community. So I think Põhjala is very lucky to have them.
Slight note of jealousy there, Sten.
There's nothing slight about it.
I think we're all jealous. I think we are all with you on that. I'm aware that we have run out of our allotted time, people. Has anybody got a question that they cannot live without an answer to? Or can we now thank our speakers for their fantastically open sharing of their experiences and incredible journeys to brilliant projects? Martina? Unmute, Martina, unmute.
Sorry, I had one. In the beginning, when you start with this project, because a big part of the buildings was abandoned, yes? Do you have a deal with the homeless people? Because here we have a lot of abandoned buildings that started some kind of the same community starting to do the projects there, and there is a part of the buildings occupied with the homeless people. Maybe you have the same problem, and how did you deal with that?
There was, this factory was empty for 10 years, but there was a one guard in here, living in here and guarding the territory. And actually we employed him in the beginning. Later it turned out that he was stealing after us, and then we couldn't keep this collaboration. But to answer your question, I can bring you one example from community garden in Lasnamäe, which is like a Soviet district of Tallinn. And they had an empty yard where they started to do the community garden. And in that empty yard, there were constantly drunks drinking. But as they continued with the presence of the community and the children, especially also children, then what happened was that when you bring like this presence of other people in there, the community starts to regulate itself, meaning that the drunks were a bit uncomfortable to drink constantly there because they were surrounded by other people who made then complaints to police, to wherever. So they just sort of started to leave. So sometimes I think it's also an option to leave this, like to let it regulate itself naturally. And we still have sometimes like drunk people sitting here. The other day I found one, and he luckily remembered where he lives, and I ordered a cab for him. And I've also found some drug addicts from our roofs, because they sometimes climb in from the empty windows. And last time when I went to get them down, I thought in my head, okay, what's the best methodology here? Do I, like in the beginning, threat with police? But I just went with very calm and friendly presence, and just saying, please, 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 it's unsafe, please leave. And they understood and they calmly left. So I think it's also a lot about your own mentality and attitude. I think especially people who are drunk are very sensitive to emotions often, and then you should take care how you handle and talk with them.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Martina. Good last question. Liis, Ruts, Sten, thank you so much. It has been inspiring, fascinating, thought-provoking, jealousy-making, and sad that we aren't with you in person today, but we are all committing to come and visit when such things are allowed. So you have a lot of people planning to come through your doors and ask you lots more questions in future. I'm sure that the Tallinn team will have asked you, but we'd love to have your presentations to hold on to and refer back to. Thank you so much again for sharing your thoughts and wisdom with us today so openly.